Hello, I'm Richard Gisbert, and you're at The Listening Post. This week, the massacre in Mumbai. India and Pakistan at war through the media. Somalia, a safe haven for pirates, a dangerous place for journalists. Turkmenistan, one of the worst records on press freedom in the world. And a viral video that takes aim at Facebook. Welcome back. It was a story that had a global audience. 3 days of terror that took almost 200 lives in Mumbai and gripped the attention of millions of viewers watching around the world. The wall-to-wall live coverage meant that whether you were in Mumbai or Mexico City, you could witness the same events unfolding at the same time. There were chilling new technology aspects to the story. Foreign hostages using mobile phones to give live updates to news programs back home. Hostages using BlackBerries to email their families. Hostage takers using that same technology to coordinate their attacks. And the flood of information created a slew of rumors, often false, about who was responsible. Our starting point this week is Mumbai, the extraordinary speed of the coverage and the way the media in India and Pakistan ramped up the tension between the two countries.
It's very tense and there is terror on Mumbai streets.
ये जो है वो है Western Express Highway.
All right, there you go. You heard a big blast outside right now inside the Taj Hotel.
The night Mumbai came under attack, the Indian media were all over the story.
The city of Mumbai under attack.
This is one of the world's fastest growing news media markets. There are 69 news channels operating in India, and the night of the attack, the coverage was all-encompassing, the competition fierce.
18 घंटे हो चुके हैं जब कदम रखा उन दहशतगर्दों ने भारत.
You see what is happening in Mumbai and the way it has been covered. It has been unprecedented. The television channels are being stretched to their limits in terms of resources.
Several people are reported injured.
Channels want to run all the time because they have competition from other channels, and so they end up repeating information. They don't have information, yet they carry on holding the live coverage. So that sort of affects the quality of the coverage as well, because information is not available. You're not really sure of the accuracy of the information either.
Every time this happens, there is a lot of very, very lurid coverage of the immediate aftermath and very little understanding of the background and the follow-up to it.
And often what was driving that coverage was new technology. While the news channels were camped outside hotels that turned into battle zones,
There are more shots that we are hearing from the rear end of this hotel.
net-savvy Indians were filling holes in the news narrative. Twitter, the real-time text and web messaging service, and Flickr, the online photo site, were inundated with updates and images.
It's something that television simply cannot cover. In fact, even newsprint finds hard to cover this. But the internet space is free, and that is being used liberally. And I think that has made a huge difference also to the way channels in newsprint work.
And sometimes mainstream media were the beneficiaries.
It's the moment the lone surviving terrorist is captured.
In this case, airing grainy cell phone footage of a gunman's capture.
Welcome to PTV News.
Across the border, Pakistani media were keeping a close eye on the events in Mumbai.
I think for the first 24 hours, I can say that the Pakistani media was very sympathetic and with the people of India. But the events that happened within the next 48 hours changed the entire perception.
Haider was referring in this case not to Indian politicians, but to the Indian news media.
मुंबई में मैंने जो कुछ देखा, सुना, महसूस किया, उसके बाद ये बात ठोक बजाकर कही जा सकती है कि आतंकवादी सरहद पार से आए थे, यानी पाकिस्तान से आए थे.
An element within the Indian media pointing fingers at Pakistan before everything had been concluded in Mumbai.
New tensions with Pakistan.
The operation was still ongoing. That really rattled nerves.
पाक फौज के तर्जुमान अतर अब्बास ने कहा है कि भारतीय मीडिया पाक भारत ताल्लुकात के हवाले से गैर मुसद्दिका खबरें नशर कर रहा है.
People thought perhaps there's a hidden agenda there, and that I think started the alarm bells.
किसी भी लेवल पे पाकिस्तान को बेनिफिट होता हुआ नजर नहीं आ रहा. तो इसके बावजूद वो पाकिस्तान के ऊपर इस तरह का जब ब्लेम करते हैं, तो do you think it's a deliberate attempt on their part?
Television news channels love labels to build their graphics around. And in this case, India's news channels called the attacks India's 9/11.
What happened there is our 9/11.
What was ironic, perhaps inevitable, was that India's commercially driven news channels then repeated some of the most serious failings of the US media post 9/11. An over-reliance on information from unnamed government sources, a reluctance to challenge the accuracy of that information, and a willingness, even an eagerness, to point the finger.
I think the Indian media here, in terms of access to official sources and to information from official sources, is in the very same dilemma that media elsewhere are, which is that if you don't toe the line, if you don't follow the official diktat, then you lose access and you lose information. And most news organizations are prepared to go with even very incomplete information, provided it has an instant selling power, provided it is of interest to advertisers, provided it does not offend advertisers.
There is an element for certain media groups or most media groups to rally behind a cause that is proposed by the government. I mean, that happens in the United States all the time. If the government has an agenda, the media sometimes plays along with that agenda.
Mumbai was reclaimed by the security forces on Saturday.
But the real professional international journalists must try and rise above that for the sake of history and for the sake of objectivity.
And for the sake of news consumers on both sides of the India-Pakistan border, as well as those watching, reading, and listening around the world.
Horrible, horrific terror attacks in the heart of India, in the city of Mumbai.
Here's how our Global Village Voices see the coverage of the Mumbai attacks.
Lying in my hotel room watching the media as the news broke, I was able to phone down to the concierge, organize transport to the airport, and managed to beat all roadblocks or any hassles getting into the airport, which I think proves to me that the media reacted to the situation a lot quicker than the local authorities.
The Indian television punctuated its rolling news coverage with this emotional, aggressive painting of a fabric on which you laid out the suspects. An example of this is the aggressive questioning of the Pakistani president on live TV with questions like, is it okay for us to bomb your country? Now, I'm not sure what purpose this served besides stoking the emotions of an imagined audience.
Our Global Village Voice platform gives you the opportunity to make your views on global media known to the world. Just email us at listeningpost@aljazeera.net and we will find a way via video, webcam, or even camera phone to get you on the air as one of our Global Village Voices. Time now for Listening Post News Bites. A British coroner has ruled that a BBC journalist who was shot and killed in Somalia only accepted the assignment out of fear for her job. Kate Payton, a producer based in South Africa, was murdered in Mogadishu in 2005. The inquest into her death was told by Payton's friends and family that she agreed to go to Somalia only hours after her boss talked to Payton about her, quote, lack of focus, unquote. The coroner made clear in his ruling that although the BBC was not liable for Payton's death, the broadcaster did have some lessons to learn from the tragedy. After the verdict, the BBC said it would reiterate to its staff that any journalist has the right to turn down dangerous assignments. Still with Somalia, 2 local translators have been arrested in connection with the kidnapping of 2 European journalists they were supposed to be working for. The journalists, a British reporter and a Spanish photographer, have yet to be identified. They were in northern Somalia to report on piracy, including the story of that Ukrainian oil tanker hijacked off the country's coast. Local government officials said the 2 journalists had failed to let them know that they were in the country and were working without the armed guards considered essential when reporting from Somalia. The U.S.-based Committee to Protect Journalists calls Somalia one of the 3 most dangerous countries in the world to report from, along with Iraq and Sierra Leone. Since our report last week on the media blockade of Gaza, Israel has lifted its 4-week-old ban on foreign correspondents entering the Strip. One of the people we interviewed was Amira Haas, an Israeli columnist for the Haaretz newspaper. When Haas tried to re-enter Israel this past week, she was arrested by Israeli police. She now faces charges of being in Gaza illegally. Israeli reporters have been barred from the Strip by their own government since 2006. Al Jazeera correspondents were among the few foreign TV reporters in Gaza over the past month. Many journalists accused Israel of deliberately using the media blockade to keep the Gaza story out of the news. Israeli officials denied that and insisted the siege was in place for security reasons. Nicolas Sarkozy's French government has been accused once again of using heavy-handed tactics against the news media. The editor of the left-leaning French daily paper Libération, Vittorio De Philippis, was recently detained and questioned in connection with a libel case. De Philippis says he was handcuffed and strip-searched. French officials are denying that they were out to intimidate the journalist. The Justice Minister, Rachida Dati, insisted that the arrest was quite normal. Ever since taking power, President Sarkozy has not been shy about taking on the media and has installed some of his key supporters in senior positions in state-funded television channels. We're back after the break with a piece on Turkmenistan and its lamentable record on freedom of speech.